Survivor Series War Games 2024. I actually don't like that. I think War Games should be its own pay-per-view just called War Games and go back to doing the traditional Survivor Series matches, because calling it Survivor Series War Games, that's like too much. To either have the Survivor Series or have War Games. But it's your boy Icon with a WWE PLE review for you. Go over those War Games, because even now, like when it's like now you just call it War Games, you don't even call it Survivor Series. But like I said, it's your boy Icon, and before we get started, check out my other reviews, like it or subscribe to my YouTube channel as we talk about the wrestling here for the Survivor Series. And happy Thanksgiving, one and all. So, no pre-show, and I'm going to say this again until I'm blue in the face. If you have a 2-hour pre-show, you can't give us at least like one pre-show match. It's just 2 hours of like endless talking. And I like Big E. You know, like I like having Wade Barrett. But shit, we don't need 2 hours of talking for us like to not have a match. So, the PLE started with the women's War Games match. Team Bianca. It's not Team Rhea, it's Team Bianca. Like I saw online WWE had posted like Team Rhea Ripley. How is that Team Rhea Ripley when she was like the second to last person that joined the team? So, and like technically she was the last person because Bayley was a fill-in, but I'm like, you're the last person on the team. Like, it's not your team. It's like Team Bianca. So, but yeah, Team Bianca versus Team Liv Morgan. I guess Liv Morgan's team has all the champions. And this, I am going to say this, usually whenever they do a men's event and a women's event, like Money in the Bank, Royal Rumble, like whenever they do something for the men and they do something for the women, generally like the women, their match is like 9 times out of 10, like more entertaining and better than the men's. This was not one of those cases. And I like all the girls involved, but one of the things that I didn't like about the match, it was very slow. It was slow in the sense of like the way everybody was moving and the way everybody, and also it was very choreographed. Like you can tell moments where they had weapons, they had chairs, they were supposed to do certain moves to each other. Everybody was moving like they were literally trying not to hurt people. And you're not supposed to hurt people. Like, you know, in wrestling, you're supposed to, you know, do the match. You're supposed to perform the moves, but do them in a safe way that doesn't actually injure your opponent. But at the same time, it's also supposed to look real. And they were hitting each other. Like, even with the chairs, it's like, it wasn't even like they were swinging with full force and then like stopping at the last second to not have a huge impact. They were just like, bang, tat. The Io Sky thing like needs to die, because they said Io Sky she's the only woman that's been involved in every single women's War Games match, and I feel like the only reason why she was involved in every single War Game, she's like the Kofi Kingston of War Games. She's only in the match just so she could jump off the damn thing and do a backflip. And it's getting to the point now where that's even becoming like overly choreographed, because even when she tried to do the spot with the trash can, all the girl, like she was on the right side of the ring. The entire female like competitors, they were all on the left. Half of them had to force themselves to go over to the other side just so they could take this girl's moonsault. And it's just getting to the point where like we know it's coming now. Like we know, like it's at the point now where because we know it's coming, it doesn't look natural anymore. Like when she does it, it's like you can see everybody waiting for her. You can see the setup. And again, and that was one thing about this match that I didn't like. You saw like you can like it was almost like all 10 women choreographed their match together like the night before, and they were literally just picking, okay, this is my turn. Oh, this is what I'm supposed to do. It's like you saw the choreography like come to life, and you're not supposed to see it. It's supposed to look more fluid. I said, aside from that, but I said that's the one thing I didn't like about the match. But the one thing I did like about the match was the storyline aspects of everything, because even when the women were in the ring, and it was time for, because Nia Jax started the match. So Bayley and Nia Jax, they were the two that started the match. And the Team Bianca was supposed to have the quote-unquote advantage. But if Nia Jax is the woman that starts the match for the other team, even if you have the War Games advantage and it's 2-on-1, that one is Nia Jax. So you technically still don't have the advantage, because Team Bianca actually had the advantage and Nia was like whooping 2 people's ass at one point. But then when it was time for the next participant to come in, which was Tiffany Stratton, she was about to go in because like Nia is her girl, she was going to save Nia, but because but because Tiffany Stratton and Candice LeRae are doing this whole like fighting for Nia's affection thing, Candice kind of like pushed past Tiffany Stratton and she just went in the ring herself, which caused controversy. And then Tiffany showed up, like Bianca came in, Naomi came in, and I forgot Candice LeRae was actually in the first women's War Games match back in NXT. That was the one where Dakota Kai turned on Tegan Nox. So I said, but it came down to the end. Liv Morgan was the only person that was actually making that shit look real, because when she was using that baseball bat, like I felt like she was really hitting people with that baseball bat. Like that was the one thing that actually looked legitimate. They did have moments where Io Sky and Bayley, they were kind of like giving each other the side eye, like the will they won't they, because they had like the two of them actually fought for the women's championship, the WWE Women's Championship at WrestleMania. So it's like the two of them were fighting other people. They were kind of getting along, and then they were looking at each other like, bitch. There were even moments where like Bianca was giving like Bayley the side eye for certain things. And if I'm Rhea Ripley, if it can't, because like Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan were the last two women for their respective team, and Liv Morgan being the last person in the entire match. So Rhea Ripley came out before Liv. If you're Rhea Ripley and your whole thing is you don't give a damn about the War Games or the other girls involved, you just want to get your hands on Liv Morgan. If I was Rhea Ripley, the moment they opened my cage, and I know that Liv Morgan's the only person left, I swear to God, I would have stood in front of her cage and waited for the time to expire, and then I would have beat her ass right there in the gate. But there was no interference by Dominic Mysterio, which was kind of odd. I thought that was gonna happen. So, but in the end, after a brutal War Games match, happy birthday to Naomi because it was her birthday. In the end of the women's War Games match, surprisingly, with the Riptide off the top rope onto the table, Team Bianca actually defeated Team Liv Morgan. And I guess that's fine because basically everybody on Liv Morgan's team has a championship. like Candice is the Speed Champion, like Liv is the World Women's Champion, Nia Jax is WWE Champion, Tiffany's Money in the Bank. It's like everybody but Raquel Rodriguez like has a title. So them losing the match doesn't hurt them because they're all still champions. But if Rhea's going to continue with the Liv Morgan feud, she has to have a feud with Raquel Rodriguez first, because we done seen her fight Liv like so many times. We need to take a break from that. So now that Liv is supposed to fight Io Sky one-on-one, I need to see Rhea Ripley have a match with Raquel Rodriguez to fill that gap. But but that was it. Like one of the funny spots was there was a moment where Nia Jax was beating Bianca with her own hair, and then she was like, "How do you like it?" and everything. But that's it. It was still a good match. It was still a good match. It was just obviously like choreographed, and listen. But we'll see where it goes, because we still have the who attacked Jade Cargill thing. There was even a moment where when the referee raised all 5 girls' hands, if you notice, Bianca still looked at Bayley like, "I still don't trust you, bitch." We'll see. And we're moving on to the next match, which was the United States Championship match with the returning Shinsuke Nakamura versus LA Knight. And surprise, surprise, they said that no on the pre-show, no championships have ever changed hands in Vancouver. And that finally came to an end because King Shasa and LA Knight lost the United States Championship. So I mean, you were feuding with Carmelo Hayes, you were feuding with Andrade, and in the end, like, you got beat by Shinsuke Nakamura. So I guess we're trying to put more respect on Shinsuke's name. We're trying to make him more of a credible threat, which worked. I mean, he has the new look. He's not doing the Michael Jackson crap anymore. So, he does look more dangerous. He did spend a lot of time in Japan, like wrestling people in Japan. So maybe he did find like some new vigor and, like on life. So, but it is cool. Like I'm surprised that they took the belt off of LA Knight, but I'm also happy because it shows that a champion can be vulnerable at any time. And then I feel like LA Knight will get it back. Like maybe Shinsuke will rock with it for like a couple of months, and then eventually like LA Knight will get it back. But we'll see what LA Knight has to say about it. Or maybe he'll move on and try to fight Cody Rhodes after Saturday night's main event. But Shinsuke Nakamura, your new United States champion. And let's say we'll see who's next and how the story unfolds on SmackDown. Next up was the Intercontinental Championship, which was Braun Breaker versus Sheamus versus Ludwig Kaiser. And as you can see, this was as the phrase goes, a slobber knocker. It was very physical. They made way too much a big deal out of Sheamus winning his first Intercontinental Championship. But I do like Braun Breaker because, like, even Ludwig Kaiser, he did an interview and he was just like, I will restore the prestige of the Intercontinental. And I feel like Braun Breaker is still doing that because Braun Breaker, because he's a badass, because he's a monster and he's a beast, I do feel like he is keeping the prestige of the Intercontinental Championship alive. He is defending it on Raw, like in main events. They just need more people for him to fight. They just need to find more guys for him to wrestle. So after this is over, it's like you didn't beat Sheamus now, you didn't beat Ludwig Kaiser. So somebody, like just how like they brought in Shinsuke Nakamura, somebody new, somebody fresh needs to come in to challenge Braun Breaker, even if that person doesn't win. Like in order to keep the prestige going, the champion has to fight and beat credible people. So we'll see who he comes up with. But yeah, after 2 wicked spears, Braun Breaker basically cut through the competition, and he is still your Intercontinental Champion. Then we had the World Heavyweight Championship, had Gunther versus Damian Priest. And although they did a good job of making Gunther look weak and making his title reign not seem as impressive as his title reigns in the previous past, we all knew that Damian Priest still wasn't going to win that belt. and Gunther was Gunther. He was classic Gunther. See, but here's the difference though, because when Gunther was wrestling before, he won all of his matches straight, even though he was the heel, even though he was the bad guy, even though like you hated him, he won all of his matches straight up with no cheating, no interference. He was just physically better than everybody else. And then he was just like, the best ring person in the match. But lately he has been winning his matches due to even if it's not interference that he asked for, their interference is still involved, because in this match Finn Balor showed up because Finn Balor is not going to let Damian Priest get shit. Their beef still isn't over. Finn Balor cost Damian Priest, the World Heavyweight Championship. Gunther made him pass out with a sleeper hold that had his arm attached to the side of his head. And yes, Gunther is still your World Heavyweight Champion. Now, I don't know if CM Punk is going to come after Gunther now, because now that CM Punk has nothing to do, maybe he's going to try to come after Gunther, but then Seth Rollins is going to get involved. Does the Bronson Reed situation still go on with Seth Rollins? I don't know. But right now, the World Heavyweight Championship is wide open. It looks like Priest is going to have at least one more match with Finn Balor, and we will see what happens. But like I said, Herr Gunther is still your World Heavyweight Champion, and the Das Ring General is still on top of Raw. And then finally was the men's War Games match, which was the OG Bloodline with CM Punk versus the new Bloodline with Big Bronson Reed. And even when the match started and the entire new Bloodline was in the cage, and then the OG Bloodline team started coming out one after one after one after one, when CM Punk came, and I don't know why people don't do this, even more, when CM Punk came out and he saw the entire heel team in the cage, he walked up to the cage and just mushed Bronson Reed for no reason. And I started dying, because I was like that's something that you would do, especially if you got beef with people, and that's how you stir up the pot. So kudos to CM Punk, for getting things started in the War Games match. And then they all went in. Main event, Jey Uso, he was actually the last person to get introduced because he was the one that started the match. He did the yeet on top of the cage. It was him and Tama Tonga. And here's where the controversy started, because there was a moment where when the cage for Solo was opened, I believe it was supposed to be Tonga Loa that was supposed to come out of the cage, and then Solo stopped him and he said, no, let's send Jacob Fatu instead. So then when it was time for Roman's team's cage to open, Punk was about to run out, and then Roman put his hand out to stop Punk from leaving, and he told Sami Zayn to go out instead. And I was like, uh-oh, this is getting interesting. And then Punk just looked at him like, what the hell are you doing? And then he let Sami Zayn go instead. So now Punk and Roman Reigns are just standing in the cage together. I guess Roman's plan was for Punk to be last and to be the last person in the thing. So Punk is just standing, Punk is annoyed as hell that he did that. So Punk is just in the cage, leaned on the cage with his arms folded. And then when it was time for Roman's cage to open, and then Roman started slowly walking out, all proud, Punk just pushed right past him and walked out of the cage. One thing I will say that they are doing a good job of in these War Games matches, they're finding a way to make the stuff that happens in the cage, instead of just having 4 people just standing there waiting, they're finding ways to make those moments entertaining and to stir up the pot. Because again, when they brought back War Games, the first entertaining thing that happened that didn't take place in the actual ring was when Dakota Kai had sucker kicked, Tegan Knox. But I said, but they are doing things to make, to make the cage stuff more interesting. So then, then Punk goes in, and then Roman comes in. They lock the cage to make sure that Roman couldn't get any climb the gate. All 10 members are in the ring. And then there was a moment where Roman Reigns had accidentally speared CM Punk, And then I said this, like, all my friends that watch wrestling, I kept telling them, I said, I'll bet you any amount of money at some point Bronson Reed's big ass is going to try to jump off the cage and hit somebody with a tsunami. And that's exactly what happened, because you have to find a way to get Bronson Reed out of the match. Like, you have to find a way to, like, to take him out. And it was either he was going to come off the cage and crash and burn, or Seth Rollins was going to show up and Seth Rollins was going to, like, interfere and, just to get his revenge on Bronson Reed. No, but they went the tsunami route and my man Bronson Reed crashed and burned. It was very cool visually. But what made it cool was Punk, because Roman was the one that was on the table, and when Bronson tried to go for the tsunami, CM Punk was the one that pulled Roman Reigns off the table, which allowed Bronson to crash and burn. And then when Jacob Fatu was going to hit CM Punk with the jumping DDT, Roman saved him with the Superman punch. And then, Jimmy Uso was actually, I feel like Jimmy Uso was kind of like the MVP of the match, because he came off the top row. He came off the top of the cage and hit the Samoan splash on top of Jacob Fatu, which took him out of the match. But Jimmy did hurt himself, because when the match was over, both Jay and Sammy was carrying him, like down the aisle. And then, like, in the end, it was like all 5 of them versus Jake, versus Solo Sikoa. Everybody hit their big moves on Solo, GTS, haluva kick, double super kicks, spear, 1, 2, 3, and the OG Bloodline reigns supreme. And then everybody but Punk threw up the ones, in the ring. Punk did the sleep, he did the sleep thing. And then, Punk and Roman Reigns, like, they shook hands. There was even a moment where when all the members of Team Roman were this was before they made peace, when all members of Team Roman were on the floor, Roman went over, helped up Jay, helped up Jimmy, helped up Sammy, and then he just stepped over CM Punk and didn't help him up. But then later on, like, the two of them, then after when Punk saved him from going through the table, that's when Roman extended the hand and he helped up CM Punk. And then the two of them shook hands. There was mutual respect between them. All of them got out of the cage. And then when they got out of the cage, the wise man was there. Like, he was there to embrace everybody and to hug everybody. He hugged CM Punk, and Punk was just like, hey. And then, Paul Heyman said to Punk, he said, I owe you. And then Punk was like, no, we owe each other, but I still need that favor. And then he was like, anytime. And then Roman embraced, like, the wise man. And then the Bloodline is back together, I guess. Like, well, 2 of them are on Raw now. So I don't know. It's like, are we going to do a trade? Are we going to trade, like, Jey Uso and Sami Zayn over to SmackDown in exchange for 2 other people? Because, as far as I'm concerned, like, this is over. The Bloodline thing is over. And then, like I said, they all went to the end of the ramp. Then one more time, they put up the ones. They put the ones in the air. Punk did the go to sleep symbol. And like I said, nothing crazy happened. Like, there was no aftermath. Like, there was no, like, ridiculousness. Like, there was peace. Like, everybody was cool. It was a one-time thing. It was like, one-time thing, just to win the war. But the war isn't over yet until Roman Reigns gets the necklace, the tribal necklace. It's not over till he gets his back, which means him and Solo still have one more piece of business left, which will probably take place at the Royal Rumble. But that was how the pay-per-view ended for War Games. That was how War Games ended. And thank you for tuning in. So it was still a good pay-per-view, because the matches that we got were solid. We even got a title change, so you can't be mad at that anytime we get a title change. And like I said, this was one of the rare situations where I enjoyed the men's War Games match better than the women's, because the women's one just looked too choreographed. But the women do have more multiple storylines going on that makes their situation more interesting. And I also want to see how the IC and US women's title factors into that as well. So we will keep watching for some more wrestling and some more wrestling goodness. The Netflix debut is coming soon. Like, we're already in December. So, like, that's around the corner. And like I said, we'll see what happens. And I think NXT has a pay-per-view coming up next week, so we're going to review that as well. Check me out on X, check me out on Instagram, check me out on TikTok, always on YouTube, where you can leave your questions, comments, and concerns. What did you think of War Games? Overall, I'm gonna give the show a 7.5, like, overall. Like I said, because I thought it was very good. It was enjoyable. I could definitely watch the shenanigans that happened, like, over and over and over again. So, but like I said, what I definitely look for. Oh, and Tiffany did attempt the cash in, and that was realistic, because there was a moment where Nia Jax and Liv Morgan were both laid out. Tiffany hid her briefcase in a trash can, which I thought was actually a good idea. And when she was deciding who to cash in on, Raquel broke that up, which makes sense, because Raquel was like, bitch, what are you doing? Like, we're trying to win a War Games match, and I'll be damned if you try to cash in on Liv Morgan. So that was we'll see if Nia acknowledges that on SmackDown. But like I said, overall, definitely a good show, and I look forward to the next one. So thank you for tuning in, guys. So once again, happy Thanksgiving, and until next time, until we go to war, take care, and we're out this bitch.